great idea. This is a little larger. There's many different ways to conserve and to save your water for usage, but what we found out is the government, right, suggests a gallon of water for each person a day. Well, I can tell you firsthand that if you want to drink, of course, there's the rule of threes to start off with. Aaron, do you remember what it is? I told you last time I was here.
3 minutes without air, 3 days without shelter and bad weather.
3 hours.
3 weeks without.
What was 3 days?
3 days without water.
And 3 weeks without food. If you were really starving and it was like, a dire straits, like a 7.0 earthquake, which there's an exercise coming up that I highly recommend, right, Linda? Where they are going to be showing a 7.0 earthquake this Thursday. I highly recommend you talk to either Linda or I about attending at 7 p.m. But, so the thing with water is, if you want to wash, if you want to drink to stay alive, because all life comes from water, right? All life comes from water. We even come from water. So if we want to stay alive, we're 85% water in our bodies. If we want to stay alive and not become dehydrated zombies, and if we want to be able to wash, so we have good hygiene, because like if you survive, you want to have wellness, and how about some good hygiene, right? And you want to be able to cook and maybe flush your toilets or something. I would highly recommend 7 gallons of water per person per day. That's what I calculate. I do in-home permaculture and disaster preparedness consultations, and I recently, it's a year ago already, I was on the Joan River show, and I gave Joan and her daughter Melissa a consultation, and so 7 gallons of water a day I would recommend as minimum. And you can't just worry about yourselves, you have to worry about like your children, and you have to worry about your pets. So you should calculate some water in there for your pets. Food is a whole different story as well. I mean, everyone needs to be considered. And including horses if you have horses, right? And in terms of the water, this is a great solution. The other solution is, and I didn't bring mine, is the Sparklets 5-gallon jugs, and preferably in glass, because the water, the plastic leaches on the plastic, and if it heats and everything, you have to really be careful of the temperatures. And when you store in those 5-gallon jugs, outside or inside, you want to keep it in kind of a shaded area and keep it kind of cool, not let it get too hot so you don't get any algae in it. And I highly recommend you change over your water jugs every 3 months. You don't want to keep the water in there longer than 3 months to just keep it rotating. And then the other option that I have on my land is a giant tank that looks like almost like a septic tank. It's about this big, and it holds 1,500 gallons of water. If you have a yard, it's only 6, not even 5 feet in diameter, and like maybe 5 feet tall, and it holds 1,500 gallons of water, and that would be enough water for everything you would need for quite some time in case of an emergency. And a big tank like that only costs like a few $100s. So I highly recommend it. And there's something called Sawyer Water Products. When I did the SOS parking lot sale, there's this amazing man there. They work with relief efforts for, like Elise said, we are not alone. There are people all over the world that have water. That's one of the main reasons why we have issues with other countries. It's not only civil wars in their own countries, but countries have disdain for us because of our lack of respect for the sacredness and the finite natural resources that we have here in the United States, and how we take them for granted and don't respect them the way that we should, especially indigenous peoples who I work with. So anyway, and then in terms of, go ahead.
Question, why can't you leave the gallons of water on cement?
You can leave them on cement. That's a cool surface. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I didn't say about,
No. Sir taught us that you can't do that.
On cement?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I have mine actually sitting on a concrete slab in my backyard. I mean,
It should actually be on.
mine are glass though. They're not
Glass
plastic.
is fine.
Yeah, glass is
The
fine.
plastic is the problem.
Yeah, we actually
Plastic ones should be on wooden pallets, or at least on cardboard.
And so why is that? Linda?
Because it leaches the minerals up from the concrete.
Yeah, the plastic is an issue. I highly recommend, I know this is off topic and I'll make my sprouting stuff, it's very remedial and as quick as possible for the purposes of Lucy and Ilya, the beautiful community school that's hosting us today. But yeah, if you haven't seen the movies Plastic Planet, and I'm a breast cancer survivor and my mom's a twice breast cancer survivor, and you haven't seen the movie Bag It, I highly recommend it. You can say it's some hippie propaganda, but if you watch this movie, I removed every piece after I took out my microwave, finally after 50 years or whatever, I'm 50 water catchment systems for your house, for your roof and everything, it sounds like you're pretty squared away into your gray water system. Thank God the County of Los Angeles is starting to approve gray water systems, but only from your laundry, not from your tubs yet or anything. In case of an emergency for disaster preparedness reasons, Lucy asked me to talk about water first for today's presentation. You know, everyone has a water heater somewhere, either in their building or in their unit, and just know that in case of an emergency, that water heater has a tap on it, just like a tap for hot water on your Arrowhead or Sparklets, like, you know, thing in your house if you have one or wherever you've seen it. And some of us have water heaters as big as 75 or 150 gallons, and that's a lot of water in case of an emergency. And also, you can shift water sources. Like, when we didn't have water for 3 weeks, there was a time there that I was literally taking water, like, out of the toilets to wash dishes, out of the toilet tanks, not the toilet, you know, seats, and taking water from, like, the pool and from the ponds that we had and using them in the toilet tanks, because I wanted something that was clean. And, like, yeah, it's not dirty if it's in the toilet tank, you know. I mean, you have to be resilient about those things. And coming from my grandparents, visiting them on the island, you know, when you're, like she was saying, a big desalinization, it's amazing, right? That it's, in my mind, as a 50-year-old woman in the United States, right, brought up in the time of, like, telephones, cords, tapping stuff. It's just amazing to think that 2014, when I thought we'd be living like Star Trek, not every person on the earth has clean drinking water. And even in our own country. And then the other thing is that everyone should have, and we'll get into the sprouting right now, it's a perfect leeway, everyone should have filters on their water. And Elise can talk more about this, I'm sure it's controversial, but there's ammonia and there's chlorine in our water. And that off gases, thank God, but that's if you leave it out, not if you drink it straight from the tap. Now they have another molecule called chloramine, which doesn't off gas. And it's very dangerous for people who have certain issues with, like, liver and kidneys and, yeah, and diabetes and things like that, different, like, yeah, disorders. And, yeah, and then there's also the fluoride, post-industrial fluoride in our water. And we're taking showers, and just like me getting breast cancer, my breast cancer was from agricultural pesticides. When I lived on my grandparents' farm, the planes used to fly over crop dusters and spray pesticides on the crops and on us while we were playing and riding bareback horses in our bathing suits. And what's the biggest organ in your body? Your skin. Hello. So when we're taking showers, or as girls, when we're shaving and our pores are open and the hot water's opening them even more, and then we're putting on deodorant that has, like, all kinds of chemicals in it, all that stuff and all the chemicals from the water is going right into our bodies. Okay? So it's something to think about.
Before you go on to sprouts, let me just ask you quickly, what do you recommend as a general guideline for dogs for water per day?
I would give the dogs at least a gallon a day for the dogs. You know what I mean? They don't need a bath, they don't cook, they don't, you know what I mean? It's just, yeah, the same as they would recommend for a human, just for drinking purposes, which would be more than you need for a dog.
Okay, so no horses.
Yeah, and horses, I would say at least a 5-gallon jug for a horse a day. I would think, knowing the troughs that we had to fill on my land, we had horses, you know, it was, a lot of water. Like, at least allocate 5 gallons of water per horse, yeah, per day. Absolutely, thank you for that, good question. It's good for me to have it in my head. So then it comes to sprouting. So in terms of like what we usually think of, I'm from New York originally. You would never guess, as my boyfriend says, from how much I like to talk. But now I'm getting hot. That basically, earthquakes, fires, and floods, right? And back home in New York, it's like hurricanes and like whatever, like snowstorms, which they're having. Like, people need to be prepared for snowstorms too. I'm actually tempted to call somebody to, like, ask if I could be on some show East Coast to, like, talk about them being prepared for this stuff. Like, my brother lives in the East Coast. He was the only one in his whole community that had a generator. I was so proud of him. He was like the hot house to be to. Everyone wanted to go to his house. They had heat, literally heat, hot. And so anyhow, but there's other emergencies too. You could have, like, in Topanga, we had a 30-ton rock fall on our road, and our road was closed for 2 years. And I was working